Welcome to Amplified, the Chesapeake Public Schools podcast.
Chesapeake Schools is located in the Hampton Roads area of southeastern Virginia. We serve 40,000 students in 45 schools and 3 centers. This podcast is designed to tell the stories behind our story and to introduce and celebrate the people and programs that make us one of the premier school districts in Virginia. And welcome to our third episode here of Amplified, the Chesapeake Public Schools podcast. I'm Richie Babb, and I'm here with
Matt Graham.
Yep. And can you believe, Matt, it's almost November.
I know.
It's crazy, right?
The temperature is great, though.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah.
I love the fall.
Is that your season? That's your season?
Fall is my season.
Okay.
Man.
All right.
I'm not into the pumpkin spice thing that everybody's in, but just the air is
I'm
crisp.
surprised by that, actually. I'm surprised.
No, I love the fall. I think it's the best time around here.
It is great. I love summer, but the only consolation for me that summer is over is college football. Roll Tide. So,
Roll Tide. Nice blurb.
Yeah, thanks. So, on top of all that, though, October is National Bullying Prevention Month. We had an opportunity to talk to a few people, both in the school system and actually the sheriff's department, about bullying. Well, as you may know, it is National Bullying Prevention Month, and to help us get into this a little bit, to understand what bullying is and what parents and families can do about it, we have our Assistant Director of Student Conduct and Support, Dr. Brooke Rudis, is here, and Meredith Sargol, our Student Engagement Counselor, both from Chesapeake Public Schools, are here. And let's start with you, Brooke. Let us get to know you a little bit. How long have you been in the school system? Where'd you come from?
Well, thanks for having us, Richie, first of all. I appreciate you. I've been with Chesapeake Public Schools for 22 years now and in education for 25.
Okay.
So I started my educational career after I graduated from Old Dominion. I graduated with a degree in recreational therapy. Really didn't know what to do with that. And I started working actually at a residential treatment facility and started working with kids there and realized that the need that kids had. One of the students I was working with there didn't even know how to read. He was 11 years old. So it kind of tore at my heartstrings, and he was going through a lot in his life. And I went on to get my master's degree in special education. And I worked at Southeastern Cooperative Education Program for 3 years with students with emotional disabilities. And after working there, I continued my administrative degrees through George Washington University and started working at Chesapeake Public Schools. And I started here as a teacher for emotional disabilities at Chittum Elementary, and I was there for a few years. And I taught emotional disabilities at Hickory High School for a few years. And then I went into administration. And I was assistant principal at Deep Creek Middle for 4 years and at Hickory Middle for 4 years. And then I became the supervisor of the Office of Pupil Discipline. And we grew, and our name changed to the Office of Student Conduct and Support, and I was promoted to the assistant director.
Very
and
nice.
Here we are. So my passion has always been working with students who have challenges with their behaviors, and I'm grateful for this role to be able to help more kids.
Now, Meredith, you're relatively new to the school system, right? Or not?
Yes.
Okay.
I started in July.
Oh, really new.
Yeah. So I am originally from Ohio and had gotten my master's in counseling. So with school and mental health specialties, and I decided to go into the school because that's kind of what felt like home to me. Mm-hmm. But I actually had moved out to Arizona. And I was working in Arizona for the past 12 years. I primarily worked with middle school, 6th, 7th, and 8th for the majority of the time and saw a lot of drama, a lot of bullying that happens there. So that's definitely kind of helps with my passion to, help prevent bullying. But my husband and I decided, we wanted to be on this side of the Mississippi. So we decided, well, our kids are young. So I have two young kids. And we decided that we were going to pick up and move. Mm-hmm. And
so you threw darts at a map?
No, it was a little bit more strategic than that.
Okay. All right.
I did want a state where I felt like education was really valued, and to come to a city where the schools were high performing, and really wanted to have that for my family is, a little selfishly for me as well.
Sure. Yeah.
So I had applied to be a school counselor, because that's what I've been. I've been a school counselor for the last 12 years, and just applied to be a student engagement and resource counselor, not thinking like, oh, that'd be great to be able to make, more of an impact. And and work with more schools and work with more students. And what do you know? Here I am.
Here you are.
Hey, we interviewed her and snatched her right out. Snatched her right up and said, you are our bullying queen. We're going to put you right in charge of that.
Yeah.
Bullying, MTSS, give me all the stuff. So.
Yeah.
So we've all experienced bullying. I know I was bullied, especially elementary, middle, where your kind of focus is. Do y'all mind sharing a time where you might have been bullied and how you kind of dealt with it?
Well, I know I can speak for myself. I experienced bullying primarily in 7th and 8th grade. So I was my junior high years, and it was pretty severe. I think, especially thinking about the definition and going into what bullying is. It was a lot of threats, a lot of tears, a lot of kids saying that they were going to beat me up if I went to the bathroom by myself. Notes in my locker saying that they wished I was dead.
Yikes.
Petitions. I had petitions from, 20, 30 students would sign it saying how much they hated me.
That's
That's crazy.
I remember one experience waiting for my mom to pick me up after cross country practice, and a fellow student came out, and it was the group of students that were primarily targeting me, and she spit on me.
Oh,
and,
gosh.
And I found out later, I didn't know it at the time. I would go home and I would just cry and say how much I hated school. I didn't want to go to school.
Yeah.
My grades were dropping and everything. And so my parents, I didn't know it, but at the time they went in and they talked to the school to try and get it to stop. And my mom told me later that she said that she kind of was given the brush off, that there wasn't much they could do because they didn't have any evidence. They didn't really have any proof. There wasn't really much they could do. And I mean, eventually it stopped. I mean, I learned very young, I guess, at that point that who I could and couldn't trust. And I had one friend. She was going through a very similar experience, and we kind of supported each other.
Those are kind of the experiences we draw off
Yeah.
of.
Right.
Because that is a challenge for our administrators. What do you do when there's not evidence? How do you support a student who is being bullied and you can't prove it? When it's her word against another child's word. And then what do we do to empower kids so that they feel like they can counteract some of the bullying that's going on? Because we know what happens. Like you said, we've all been bullied. We've all been in those situations. And we reflect back on a situation like Meredith is talking about. And how can we train our administrators better to intervene?
Right.
What tools can we give our counselors to intervene? And so we definitely rely on our own personal experiences as to how we can better serve our students so that they don't go through what Meredith has and going home and crying. And, parents going up to a school and talking to administrators and feeling that they weren't supported. It's a tough position, but certainly that we need to take it all seriously, which is why we're so glad Meredith's on our team to bring that experience that she's had, not only herself as being bullied, but also all the wonderful experiences she's had helping kids through that.
Yeah.
And that is, and I will say too, getting through that was, I think, obviously I had a good friend, but my parents were so supportive. And I guess I can say I was lucky in the sense that it was during the generation where we didn't have internet at home. I could go home and get away from it.
Yeah.
And kids these days don't have that luxury anymore.
Right.
It can be constant and chronic. And so I was lucky in the sense that I was able to go home and I had family and I had a brother and a sister who were older than me that tried to help me through it. And I definitely went through a very, very serious period of depression, but eventually the bullying stopped and I learned a lot of things about, how bullying can impact a person. And that has definitely influenced how I talk to students, especially, those kids going through those 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade years where that's when bullying is at its, usually at its peak.
Yeah.
So that's definitely why I,
So fortunately, I mean, more so than then, there's a lot more awareness of bullying, right, in the schools than it was then. But bullying takes a lot of different forms, including on social media, on cyberbullying. What's the difference, though, if you guys could enlighten me of the difference between bullying and just somebody being mean every now and then?
Well, there's a big difference between bullying and teasing. There's a big difference between being mean and bullying.
When we talk about bullying, and specifically about bullying and its impact on mental health, I know a lot of people are concerned about, well, if my child's being bullied, my child could become depressed. They could commit suicide. Well, when we're talking about bullying, there's a really specific definition that we want to refer to.
Okay.
There are 3 main parts for something to be considered bullying. One is that there's an act of aggression. Now, that active aggression can be verbal. It can be physical. So the name calling, the taunts, the threatening, it can be physical, tripping, pushing, even somebody who's like constantly stealing their things or messing with their things, somebody who's getting their stuff knocked out of their hands. We see those kind of classic images, but it can also be that emotional piece, being excluded. Everybody's invited to this party except for that person, that social exclusion, especially at those, middle school ages, is so impactful. So actual acts of bodily harm, demeaning commentary, all those can be seen as aggression. So that's the first part. There's an active aggression. The second part is that it occurs over a period of time. And we're not talking about just something that happens, well, it happened 3 times in one day, that's bullying. No, we're talking about something that occurs over a period of weeks, sometimes months. And we don't want to let that behavior get to that point. But when we're talking about bullying can be very subtle too. And so sometimes it goes missed or dismissed. So it's something that is occurring over a length of time. And the last piece is that there's an imbalance of power. So you have maybe multiple students picking on one student, right? So there's an actual numbers game happening. But it can also be social power. Somebody who maybe has more friends, they're seen as being better off in terms of socioeconomic status. They have more money, they have more friends. They might even be somebody who everybody knows is a bully. They have fear. There's power there. And they may be the people who are picking on somebody with less power. It could be somebody who's smaller, younger, maybe new to school. And honestly, especially students with disabilities are a prime example of somebody who might have just less power, less social power. And I'm not just talking about physical disabilities, so that's certainly, a category. I'm not talking about students with maybe learning disabilities, kids with ADHD, kids who are on the spectrum, who may come across as more socially awkward and don't interact in the same way as other students. So those 3 pieces, have to all be there for us to consider that bullying. Now, if something happens once and it's unintentional, we might call that rude. If something happens once and it's like deliberate, that's being mean, right? If kids are mutually joking around, everybody's having fun, that's teasing, right? Teasing is everybody's having fun, nobody's getting hurt. And then the other one that bullying frequently gets conflated with is conflict. Conflict, you have groups of equal power or 2 people of equal power. Now, there may be ongoing back and forth, but that power differential isn't there. And frequently there's a solution. Like you can mediate a conflict. You cannot mediate bullying.
Right.
So really those are, it's kind of a complex definition. You're looking at a lot of moving parts, and that's why it's so important that we do the investigations that we do to make sure that when we say, hey, this is bullying or this isn't bullying, we need to make sure that we've really looked at all the pieces.
Right. So when you're doing the investigations, what sort of takes place with that? Are you able to share?
Certainly. We actually have a procedure to investigate bullying. Okay. The first thing administrators have to do is determine, is it actually bullying, as Meredith was talking about? And if it's determined to be bullying and fitting under that definition, then administrators do a very thorough investigation. They'll talk to the students and find out what's going on. It might be in conjunction with a school counselor so that there's a safety feel for everyone involved. It may not be, but identifying what the behaviors are of concern. And then there is a notification process. So recently, we just passed House Bill 1592 talking about we're required to investigate bullying. And now we're required to report bullying of any student who may be involved in that, whether it's the victim or perpetrator. Any parent of a student who has allegedly been involved with bullying has to be notified within 24 hours. Okay. And that's actually a bill that we have to follow. So some parents may get calls about an allegation that administrator hasn't thoroughly investigated yet because we have to follow the law.
Yes.
But then we have 5 days to investigate that allegation. And that involves interviewing kids, finding out what's going on. You know, we want our administrators to separate the students so we can get, statements from them confidentially and they can share information. We like to get written statements. Sometimes we don't. Sometimes it's verbal, especially depending on the student's age. And then talk to the teachers, see if there's a witness. And those are some things when Meredith was talking about administrators, brushed it off, didn't have the evidence. That's something we also talk to the kids about. If you think you're being bullied, look around you, who was around that might be a witness, who heard this, that administrator can go talk to, because we want to stop it. We don't want kids to be going to school bullied. I mean, we want kids to come to school and feel safe. So then they do the investigation and they weigh the totality of the evidence and they make a finding from that. And then parents are informed of the outcome of that investigation. We have a whole form and procedures in place that our administrators follow that we share with them, and we train them on it. There was actually a module that each administrator in our district, each school administrator, had to complete with accompanying questions at the end, so that we made sure our administrators were aware of the new law and aware of the investigation, and we took them through step by step the form that must be completed any time that they feel like bullying has taken place, anytime they've determined that bullying has taken place.
Yeah. So obviously something like bullying that the General Assembly gets involved in, and there's what sounds like a legal definition of bullying. It sounds like then the consequences for bullying are fairly serious.
They can be. It depends on, we have to look at the developmental age. We have to look at the history of the student. I mean, first and foremost, we want to educate them on the proper way. So Meredith said there's not mediation with bullying. Well, there is, but that's not the first step. The first step is to look at it and apply whatever consequences and education we can give the child. And then once the child's been educated on the proper behavior or why their behavior was considered bullying, then we can maybe mediate with the students. But we have to make sure that that's taken care of.
Right.
And, oftentimes, especially back when we were in school, we saw kids, oh, you're getting suspended. So nowadays, parents, they're like, why didn't you suspend them? Well, first, we can't really share with you what we do to another student.
Right.
That's illegal. I can't talk to another parent about someone else's child.
Right.
But, that's what came to our mind when we were in school. They got suspended. That's how you knew they were in trouble. Well, research has shown that's not the most effective and productive way to deal with it. Really, research shows let's educate the students. Let's get them to understand what they did was wrong, maybe find out why they were doing it and come up with a resolution or a different kind of behavior, which goes hand in hand with our new initiative with our ISS coordinator. So we still have in-school suspension in our schools, but we are training our in-school suspension coordinators now to do interventions, to talk to kids about bullying. They have curriculum now that we've kind of developed that they're utilizing within in-school suspension, so that we're hopefully not just giving a consequence, but we're giving education as well. Every single ISS coordinator that we have in Chesapeake Public School has undergone 4 days of training in responsive classrooms. They've gone through a full day of training that my office provided them. And then every single person in my office has been assigned an ISS coordinator to monitor and mentor throughout this year to assist them with their with how they're providing interventions to our students. It's a great opportunity to take advantage of that time while the child is serving a consequence, where they can learn what they can do better to be a better citizen, to contribute to a positive school climate,
and hopefully reduce the number of the recidivism. We don't want we want if you're serving a consequence, we want you to learn from the consequence, and that's definitely with bullying. We want to make sure that it's not just the student who is being bullied that we need to, empathize with. Sometimes the student who is doing the bullying, maybe they in turn were bullied at another point, and now they're bullying another student. Maybe there's some things going on that they need to understand how their behavior is impacting others. There's a lot of pieces where parent involvement is really important, and helping our parents understand what bullying is, and that there are resources out there to help not only the student who's being bullied, but also if your child is the one that's doing the bullying, what can parents do to help educate their own child to make sure that, they don't have any of those bullying behaviors going forward.
Right.
A part of that bullying investigation I was talking about earlier does involve a safety plan for our victim. It does involve, if a child's been identified as a victim of bullying, there's a safety plan that can be put in place, measures taken to identify a trusted adult in the building that they can talk to give them a plan of action if they're being bullied. What can they do? How can they advocate for themselves? So we do have a safety plan to address our victims because they have been violated.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that form has it says, the part of what the school's responsibility to do is identify interventions for the victim and identify interventions for the aggressor. So they need to be addressing both.
Right. So are there community resources for parents?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I think it's Parent University that our FACE, our family and engagement counselors offer. Mm-hmm. There's a Parent University that has information on that. We also have information from our partnership with the city where there's resources there. There's a lot on the FACE page, Family and Community Engagement website.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, they have the Peak Parent University.
Yeah. And actually, I'm working with the FACE department. We are going to be putting together a bullying webinar for parents. To go on to Peak Parent University so that they can see, and we'll be listing some resources. And so we're in the process of working on that so that we can put that out to parents as well.
That's great.
Sometimes the parents just need the tools.
Right.
They know it's wrong, or they identify there's an issue, but where do you go from there?
Right.
How can they help their child? Because we know parents are sending us their best. They're not sending us their worst. They're sending us the very best that they have, and they want the best for their child. So we try and assist them with that as well.
So practically, if my kid comes home and tells me, and it sounds like bullying, then as a parent, what's my process? What do I do?
You want to call the school, find out information. Tell me what happened. Did you tell a teacher? Sometimes the kids will say, "Oh, I told my mom," and you talk to the parent, and they never told, they never told their parent, or vice versa.
Right.
They go home and they say, "Oh yeah, Dad, I told the teacher and she didn't do anything." Well, come to find out, the teacher never was told. Because they weren't comfortable. There was a reason for it. So, starting with where did the situation occur? How relevant is it? If it occurred in a classroom, reach out to the teacher, find out what's going on. If you're not getting results from that, reach out to the school counselor. Always, our administrators are available too. But finding out, and just don't take your child's word for it always that they did report it, because oftentimes we'll find that they did not. And then we're in a position where we can't help them because we don't know anything about it.
Right. Yeah.
Knowledge is power.
Right.
And our advice to kids would be find a trusted adult in the school.
And screenshot or save the evidence is another biggie.
Definitely.
Definitely.
Sure. Cyberbullying is any of the following, the definition that we had talked about, it's if it's happening on technology, social media platforms, email.
There's a big caveat, though, that parents need to be aware of. We have jurisdiction, right? We have jurisdiction where we can get involved and handle situations, and we call it door to door. So if it's not happening at school or around school, we can't really intervene with consequences.
Right.
We can certainly intervene with helping to mediate when we can. But if there's something going on social media within the community or amongst, kids on the social media, we've seen some ugly things happen there. And some parents have gotten upset that we haven't issued consequences. But if it's not in our jurisdiction, we're not allowed to.
Right.
So in those cases, we don't want to just say, oh, well, we want to counsel with the children, use our school counselors. Oftentimes, if it's an ugly, ugly case, our school resource officer may get involved to provide assistance to that family. But there are some important notices about the social media piece.
Yeah.
Sometimes the best things parents can do is just at night, have them put the phone on the kitchen counter and charge it overnight at the kitchen counter. Don't let them take it to their rooms. And then be aware of your Wi-Fi options. You can restrict your Wi-Fi and cut your Wi-Fi off at 9:00 for the kids so that they can't go and get on their Chromebooks and do other things. It's important that the kids do, as Meredith said, she was fortunate there wasn't social media when she was growing up.
Yeah.
It's important that they get that break. And sometimes as parents, we have to force that break.
Yeah.
And they're savvy. These kids, I tell you, I still go to my grown kids and tell me, please show me how to do this. They're savvy on being able to do those things. And that's a way to protect your children from bullying, is just to give them that break of what all is going on and focus on, on the family.
And definitely, if the kids are doing some different things on social media, remember, we always tell the kids, save the evidence, don't respond back, save the evidence.
And don't share. Don't go share it out.
Don't share it. Don't share it. Don't
That makes it worse.
Don't put that person on blast. Look what they that just complicates the situation. But save the evidence. So you want to report it to your parents, and parents definitely need to remember, hey, there are options such as blocking and reporting. Right. Sometimes if somebody's, bullying on like a media platform or a gaming thing, that might violate their rules. And so making sure you're reporting those things, it's definitely something for parents to look into.
Well, Dr. Rudis and Meredith Sargol, thank you so much for coming in and sharing this important information with us and our families. I know it's Bullying Prevention Month, but it's good to know that Chesapeake Public Schools and your office is on it like every day. Right.
Yes.
So
Absolutely.
It's very, very nice to know that. And I think that with this information that's out there, it definitely provides yet another resource for our families. So thank you so much again, Meredith. Thank you for sharing your story with that too. And
we appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Impact Aid survey cards were sent home on October 17th. Please remember to sign and return completed cards as soon as possible. The Impact Aid program generates close to $3 million in federal aid money that is used to support all of our students and programs across the district. We are very fortunate to have with us Undersheriff Dave Rosado here to talk about the things that are going on within Chesapeake Public Schools that the Sheriff's Department is taking part in.
Yeah. It's good to be here. Thank you.
Sure. It's good to see you. I've known you a long time, but I don't know very much about your background. Tell us some of your story.
Sure. I'm from Brooklyn, New York, born and raised. My parents are from Puerto Rico, so I guess I'm a New Yorican, as they say. And before moving out to Virginia, I worked with Geraldo Rivera on his talk show for about 10 years.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. So how long have you been in the Sheriff's Department?
22 years in October.
Wow. So you actually have like a bullying program you take out to elementary schools.
Correct. We started this program as Be a Buddy, Not a Bully back in 2012. And now it's called Be a Hero, Not a Zero. And that phrase in itself helps the kids understand that they can do something about bullying because heroes help and zeros hurt. So that's a really nice phrase. And these kids, they chant it, they sing it, and they repeat the phrase over and over.
So about the show, can you tell us a little bit what takes place?
Yeah. It's a fun, fast-paced magic show.
Okay.
Because I'm also a magician.
Right.
So it was easy for me.
We were going to get you to do some tricks for us today, but there's no video. So you don't have any audio magic tricks, I assume, right?
No. You can throw a voice or something.
So it's a 40-minute show. And we go over the basics of bullying and bully prevention, bully tips. And again, it's geared towards the elementary school age children. What's most important with us restarting this program within the schools is now we have the SROs that are deputies in the elementary schools. So that ties in great because they see their first interaction with law enforcement is a friendly interaction. It's a smile that they see every day when they go to school. Right. And that builds trust. We want the kids to run towards us, not run away from us.
Right. So what's the message that you're giving to these elementary school kids?
The message is we're out there in uniform, whether the SRO or myself at each school, and I'm in front of every student at the schools. I'm only there for 40 minutes at a time, and I want to let them know that the SROs that are there, they're your friends. And this anti-bully campaign that we do through the Be a Hero, Not a Zero school assembly program, want them to know that bullying is not okay. We follow the golden rule. Be nice to others like you want them to be nice to you. And when I explained what bullying is, it's basically being mean to another kid over and over. So if they get that concept and they know that, one, if you are doing that, you can change. Because I tell them that heroes, they help others. And if you're not helping others and you're standing by, either participating or from afar, not doing anything, then along with the bully, you're a zero. So that concept they can get. No one wants to be a zero. They want to be a hero.
Right.
So we do heroes help with thumbs up and zeros hurt with thumbs down. Yeah. And then they follow that. And they, at the end of the show, they're smiling, they're high-fiving, and they're chanting that on the way out to the next class.
Okay. Wow.
And I was at a school once, and there was a little girl up in the front row, and I told her, wow, I like your smile, and I like your shoes. Your shoes are so nice. She lit up, she lit up, and it's just those small little compliments.
Right. Being
nice to someone makes their day. So in a school of a couple of hundred students, if everyone is nice to each other, that's just, it's amazing.
It spreads it, right?
And this is important because bullying carries a lot of effects on kids and potentially families even.
It does. So as parents, we know our kids. We know when there's something on their mind. We know when they're agitated. We know when they're sad and when they're happy. So if your child comes home and is not acting like they normally act, then something's wrong.
Right.
And that's when you have to have that conversation, what's wrong. And you could also, if they're sad, if they're If they feel alone, if they isolate themselves, then there's definitely a problem.
So those are some look-fors for parents and families.
And kids, the statistics say that 1 out of every 3 elementary age students are bullied. And 1 in every 5 of kindergarten students are also bullied.
Wow.
If you have friends and they're sad and they're lonely, they're nervous, they're agitated, they're scared, then say something.
Right.
You know, like the term "see something, say something." It's important, and it's not about tattling. And that's what I talk to the kids about. It's not. If someone spilt their juice and you tell on it, who cares about that. But when someone is being hurt and you can do something about it, that is not tattling. That is telling.
Right.
And who do you want to tell? You want to tell an adult that you trust.
Right.
And that's really important. That's why in uniform, we tell the students, trust people in uniform, a firefighter, police officer, deputy sheriff. We're here to help. And of course, within the schools, you have your principal, you have your teachers, your guidance counselors, you have the school security officer at the front, and you also have parents that work within. So grab an adult, tell an adult, and that's really the most important thing that you can do.
Right.
Bullying is never okay. But for the parents, basically, coach your kids in possible ways. If bullying occurs, what to do. The school is your ally. I know the school has a 0 tolerance policy on bullying. We are just trying to share that with the kids. And of course, you take it, after we leave. But if we can come to the school, put on this anti-bully school presentation and help with the schools, because that's what we want to do. We're partnering with you to help keep the kids safe and to make them feel connected to the community, which is us as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And y'all go to, all the elementary schools, right?
So this program is offered to all the schools.
Okay.
Now, I've gotten 7 calls and I've booked 7 of these assembly shows for this month alone. And I'm still getting calls.
Wow. That's great.
Yeah, they're going to go back to back to back.
Yeah. Wow. This has been great conversation. And we're very appreciative for what you and all these SROs are doing, what the sheriff's office does. This sort of one-on-one connection with kids, I think, is crucial. Yeah. And we appreciate that, and we appreciate your time today.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming
Definitely
and sharing all this information with us and our community.
Thanks for listening to the stories behind our story. We hope you found today's episode helpful. And if your child or someone he or she knows or someone you know is being bullied, you should contact a trusted adult in the school to report that. Also available on every page of the CPS website is a link to the CPS report line. You can anonymously, or not necessarily, you can include your name, report incidents of bullying and other concerns you may have about your child and his or her school.